Okay, so this session is going to be about designer investigations, designer-led investigations. I've had quite a few questions on how you may go about setting that up, as within the 3D design specification, the emphasis on investigate and develop and informed by is important. So the first thing is, obviously, they use the language study. I think study tends to be misleading because a study could just be looking at something, whereas I like to use the term investigation because you are encouraging students to try and find something out through the process of looking or investigating or studying their research. So I like to call them designer investigations rather than designer studies. So let's look at a typical process then. So I like to sort of break it down into two elements. We've got the overview of a specific designer movement or area. So for this example, we have Brutalist Modernist, and this is an overview of what that would be in terms of the information within that. Okay. Now, these actually open up, if I can remember. And within there's the information for you to read. Okay, so again, that's the same for their actual designers. So we've got overview, and then we've got specific designers that are related to that overview. So here we have two different designers. So when we're talking about investigations, you're not only talking about investigating the movement, but you're also talking about investigating design. So this is the principles of a design movement. These are design specifics, and this is where it becomes more personal in terms of personal studies and students being able to specifically relate their research to a specific designer. So this is sort of general shape and form, and this would be a good example for general shape and form. This would be a Brutalist study looking at general shape and form. These aren't actual ideas, but these are Brutalist shapes, forms, etc. Okay, so again, that would be a Brutalist study relating to Brutalism and modernism. Okay, then we have the actual designer study, and this is what people were looking for. So in terms of my setup, I have the students to look at three things. I get them to look at design, sketching, and making. So again, they will have to do two things. The first thing they will need to do is to create, I use this concept called core shapes, where they identify the core shapes of a building that relates to their architect, and they then have to design a new building in the style of that architect. Okay, so that is the core shapes, and then this one relates to this one. So once they've done that, they can then look at the designer's work. So this is actual trying to find an example of their sketch work, and then how their sketch work can then be created. So this is him doing an interpretation of his sketch work. Okay. And then what he's done is he's then used that interpretation of that sketch work to then create a 3D outcome. Yeah, so these 3D outcomes are related to his interpretation of their work. So he's investigating the styles, the techniques, the drawings. And it's the same here. Designer sketch, designer inspired sketch, designer model based off that sketch. Yeah, okay. I'll show you a couple more. Again, this is the same. So what we've got here is Daniel Liebeskind. We've got his work, sketch, model, informed by making connections between visual and other elements, making connections between visual and other elements. And then it's the same. Again, sketch in the style of, design idea, making connections between visual and other elements, making connections between visual and other elements. So again, you know, this is really useful because you've got some sketching, you've got some modelling, you've got some idea generation, and all of this is part of the investigation process or designer study. And then students are encouraged, I would say forced to, use these investigations to inform their models, okay? So again, this then investigative process is the starting point of their initial design process.